Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are embarking on an absolutely epic 1,200-year journey. We're going to trace the unbelievable trajectory of a civilization that started out as literally nothing more than a muddy, chaotic village in ancient Italy, and somehow expanded until it became one of the most powerful and defining empires in all of human history, right before ultimately collapsing under its own massive weight. We've got a lot of ground to cover today, from wild mythology to political assassinations, so buckle up.
Okay, let's dive right into this. To keep this massive timeline organized, here is our chronological roadmap. We'll be breaking things down into 5 distinct eras: the Mythical Kingdom, the Vengeful Republic, Caesar and the Transition, the Golden Empire, and finally, the inevitable collapse.
Starting us off, era number 1, the Mythical Kingdom, spanning from 771 to 509 BC. Now, just to ground us in the sheer scale of the structural shifts we're about to explore, let's map out the massive anchors of Roman history. We start with the founding of the kingdom around 753 BC. Then, we shift gears to a republic in 509 BC, transform into a full-blown empire in 27 BC, and finally, witness the fall of the Western Empire in 476 AD.
So, how did that first kingdom actually get its start? Well, its origins are wildly dramatic, steeped in myths of a usurped king, a Vestal virgin, and twins allegedly fathered by Mars, the god of war. After growing up, overthrowing their corrupt uncle, and deciding to build their own city, the demigod twins, Romulus and Remus, hit a snag. They just couldn't agree on which hill to build on, so they decided to ask the gods through a bird-watching contest. I'm serious. Remus saw 6 birds, Romulus solved 12. Remus claimed Romulus cheated, and the argument escalated. Romulus started building a tiny wall around his chosen hill, and Remus, acting like a classic older brother menace, hopped over it just to mock his city's security. Romulus responded by murdering him right on the spot. And just like that, the founding of Rome basically boiled down to a petty sibling argument over birdwatching.
Now, what's really interesting about this is what early Rome actually looked like. Romulus was king, sure, but he essentially ruled over a chaotic asylum camp with a whole lot of ambition. You see, to populate his new city, he welcomed anyone on the run. So Rome's founding citizens were this rugged, dangerous mix of runaway slaves, debt dodgers, exiles, and criminals. But they had one major, glaring problem. They had food, they had walls, but they had absolutely no women to start families with.
Rome solved this extreme gender imbalance through an incredible, if totally terrifying, 8th century BC event. Romulus hosted a massive festival and invited their neighbors, the Sabines. Mid-party, the Romans launched a coordinated kidnapping of all the Sabine women. Obviously, the furious Sabine men returned later to wage war, but in a massive twist, the Sabine women, who were now Roman wives, marched right out between the two clashing armies. They demanded the fighting stop, forcing their old families and their new husbands to make peace. The result? The two furious armies actually merged into a single kingdom. That brings us to era number 2, the Vengeful Republic. After expelling their 7th incredibly cruel king, the Romans swore off monarchs forever, choosing instead to elect 2 consuls to lead them.
But to truly understand why the Roman Republic became the hyper-militaristic juggernaut we know today, we have to look at their ultimate villain arc. Early on in their history, the Gauls invaded Rome, looted it, burned most of it down, and basically treated the ruins like a weekend camping trip. They only left after the Romans paid them a massive ransom in gold. This sheer humiliation traumatized the Republic. It was a wake-up call. They decided that to never be victims again, they had to conquer absolutely everything around them.
This trauma response quickly turned into an addiction to expansion, leading to their ultimate showdown with their rich, powerful neighbor across the sea, Carthage. The Punic Wars were essentially 3 blockbuster sequels of pure chaos. In the first one, Rome literally stole Carthaginian ship designs to build a navy from scratch and won. In the second, the legendary general Hannibal marched war elephants over the Alps and absolutely wrecked Italy for years, but somehow Rome still managed to win. And by the third war, Rome was just so done with the rivalry that they completely erased Carthage from the timeline, burning the city and enslaving its population. Rome proceeded to conquer 10% of humanity, all fueled by that initial desire for revenge and security.
Moving on to era number 3, Caesar and the Transition. Enter Julius Caesar, basically the final boss of the Roman Republic. He famously dismantled Gaul and then casually marched his army back into Rome. After winning control, Caesar started collecting political offices like they were Pokemon cards: dictator, head priest, you name it.
But contrary to popular belief, he wasn't purely an evil tyrant. He was actually incredibly popular with regular citizens because he implemented some highly practical reforms. I mean, he fixed the chaotic calendar, which gave us the 365-day year and the month of July. He lowered taxes, canceled debts, handed out land to veterans, and heavily regulated the grain supply so poor people wouldn't starve.
But the Senate just couldn't look past his hoarding of power. After 500 years of deep-seated paranoia about kings, they saw Caesar acting exactly like one. Their solution? They murdered him right in the middle of a Senate meeting. 23 times. That's the shocking number of times the paranoid Senate stabbed Caesar, genuinely thinking they were saving the Republic.
So the absolutely crucial point here is the sheer historical irony of this assassination. The Senate walked out with their bloodied weapons proudly thinking, "We saved the Republic." But the actual Roman people? They were furious. They were like, "You just killed the guy who fed us and lowered our taxes?" Instead of saving the Republic, the Senate's actions triggered another massive civil war that permanently destroyed it, eventually paving the way for Caesar's adopted heir, Octavius, to seize absolute power.
And that ushers us right into era number 4, the Golden Empire. This officially kicks off in 27 BC when Octavius becomes Augustus, focusing his reign entirely on creating permanent stability. And his military reforms brilliantly illustrate how he solved Rome's biggest flaw. During the Republic, armies were temporary and loyal to individual generals who promised them loot, which of course constantly fueled civil wars. Augustus transformed this by creating a professional, standing army. Soldiers now enlisted for 20 years received regular pay directly from the state and got government-funded retirement packages. He completely redirected all that military loyalty upward to the state, effectively removing the main fuel for rogue generals in civil wars.
However, securing this colossal empire wasn't without tragedy. Augustus had shifted Roman strategy from endless expansion to securing their borders. But in 9 AD, Rome suffered a catastrophic loss in the Teutoburg forest. Arminius, a Germanic leader who was actually raised and trained by Rome, used his intimate knowledge of Roman tactics to betray them. He lured 3 legions into dense forests where traditional Roman formations were completely useless. The result was an absolute slaughter. 20,000 professional career soldiers were wiped out. This massive trauma permanently changed Roman policy, forcing them to abandon the idea of conquering Germania and commit fully to a defensive border strategy.
Which brings us to our 5th and final era, the inevitable collapse. This is the grim chapter where Rome's institutional integrity completely shatters. The timeline of the following centuries is, frankly, chaotic. Power stopped flowing through tradition and just started flowing to whoever had the strongest army. I mean, in 69 AD, 4 different emperors claimed the throne in a single year through civil war. By 193 AD, the Praetorian Guard realized they could literally auction the throne off to the highest bidder. Then the 3rd century brought massive plagues, hyperinflation, and rapid-fire assassinations. Realizing the empire was just too big and unstable, Emperor Constantine made a radical move in 330 AD. He built a brand new capital in the east, Constantinople, shifting the wealth and power far away from a decaying Rome.
But the truly fatal blow to the Western Empire came via a massive domino effect, triggered by migration. In the late 4th century, the fearsome Huns swept out of the east, displacing the Goths. Tens of thousands of Goth refugees arrived at the Roman border, begging for asylum. Rome let them in, but deeply corrupt Roman officials ended up starving and exploiting these vulnerable people. Pushed entirely to the brink, the starving Goths revolted. In a stunning turning point at Adrianople, they completely destroyed a Roman army and killed the emperor right on the battlefield. It turned a mismanaged refugee crisis into a devastating civil war.
Once that psychological border broke, man, the dominoes fell fast. Rome had to start making deals with armed groups inside its own borders. The Vandals rampaged and took North Africa. Now, this was a fatal economic blow because North Africa was Rome's main source of grain and tax revenue. Without taxes, Rome couldn't pay its soldiers. Without soldiers, the heart of the empire was completely defenseless. The Visigoths marched right in and sacked the city of Rome in 410 AD, and it was violently sacked for sport again in 455 AD. Finally, the empire just succumbed to sheer fatigue. In 476 AD, a Germanic commander politely asked the final emperor of the West to step down. And in the ultimate poetic irony of history, the empire that was violently founded by a man named Romulus was quietly surrendered 1,200 years later by a teenage emperor named Romulus Augustulus.
But as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a fascinating question to chew on. Did the Roman Empire actually fall in 476 AD? See, while the West crumbled into foreign kingdoms, the Eastern Roman Empire, ruled from Constantinople and later known as the Byzantine Empire, actually survived, fought, and thrived for another 1,000 years until 1453. So it really makes you wonder, what is the true definition of a civilization's collapse? Does an empire ever truly die, or does it simply transform into something entirely new? Thanks so much for joining me on this incredible deep dive, and keep asking those big questions.